Hello and welcome to today's video. Now last week there were no motorcycles and that just won't do. So this week I'm going to be introducing you to our new project. Except it's not a new project, I've been working on it for over a year. You're going to be joining me in picking up the pieces on this project. So this is my 1982 Kawasaki Kz440 Limited that I've been transforming into a chopper for well over a year now. Now this is a bike I've dreamt of building since I was about 15 or 16 and I never thought I was going to get around to it because I've actually got two other 440s and I didn't see the need for a third. But a bike came up for sale for £250. Now even then my intention wasn't to build the chopper out of it, I basically wanted it for spare parts. The reason it was £250 was it was absolutely knackered. The frame was actually rusted through at the rear, all around the shock mounts, the swing arm was rusted through, the engine was really tatty, it certainly never ran when I had it, and it needed a lot of work. Now, I'd already collected a few chopper bits and ended up making a mock-up in the garden, and I just knew I had to build it. So from that moment on, there was no parts bike, it was getting transformed into this. So you might be thinking that a chopper doesn't really interest you, and that's totally fine. I do understand that. But for me, what it is a challenge of how far you can take things, how much can you really fabricate, how hard can you push yourself. So a lot of this has been fabricated myself. I've learned a lot whilst doing it. I've redone things a lot. I'm going to start at the front and I'll take you through all the different parts I've got and where they came from, how I made them. So starting at the front wheel, I've got a 21-inch Harley wheel. Now this was actually given to me. Someone was clearing out their house and they didn't want it anymore. And it looks great. 21-inch to 16 is kind of a traditional 70s chop thing, but I will be changing it out. And I'm going to change it out because I'd like to put a drum front brake on there. That's something kind of important to me. I want a front brake, but I also want it to look period correct. So this will be going at some point, and I will probably get like a Yamaha DT front wheel or something or other like that. Moving on to the forks, I picked these up off of eBay. They were in a barn somewhere, very wet, very mouldy looking. And I picked them up for about £180, which is really cheap for what they are. They have been modified. They were about 6 or 7 inches longer, but it wasn't going to work with what I had in mind. So I created a jig, cut them down and re-welded them just a little bit shorter. So obviously you'll notice they've got the chrome twisted front legs, which also matches the handlebars I've got up there and some other bits throughout the bike as well. That's something that I really wanted to incorporate throughout it, especially sort of learning some skills from Lawrence's blacksmithing. I knew it was something that I could apply. So the headlamp is a Lucas driving lamp that also came in a big box of parts that someone was getting rid of, and it looks just about right. Again, it's another period looking part, so I had to go for that. The handlebars I bought on eBay. They come up for sale. Again, they're period, so I just had to have them. They're about 50 quid, so they're quite expensive for a second-hand set of handlebars, but really it would have cost me a lot more money and time to recreate them. I've got a British style throttle and a British style clutch lever on there, because what I really want is to kind of make this look like a Triumph chop, even though it's not. The cables I have made myself. They're all soldered to nipples that I've made up in the lathe and adjusters that I've made up in the lathe, and they function really well, and they're just kind of a nice length. They stop things from looking too gangly. So moving on to the middle section, this is a Kz440 motor. It's not original to the frame, and when I got it, it was in need of some help. It was pretty gritty and disgusting looking, and it probably hadn't been run in a very long time. It was also missing a lot of parts, and over the first lockdown I basically stripped it down, cleaned it all up, replaced all the seals, replaced all the gaskets, and deemed it to be okay. This has never ever run in my possession, so at some point hopefully you'll be joining me to see whether it runs or whether it just blows up, but we'll get around to that in a later episode. So something I have done is I've done some custom engraving on the engine casings, and again that's just something to give it that period look, make it a little bit more interesting, and they've come out quite well. I'm quite pleased with those. Up here I've got my beloved Makunis, and I've also got some little inlets that I've made. That was just some chrome tubing that I found in the scrap, and managed to make some sort of slash cut intake. The foot pegs were actually made from the offcuts from the fork, so they're that twisted chrome, they're nice and in keeping, which is really cool, and I made them a little bit wider just so that I can spread my feet out and relax a bit. Now, tank wise, we were a little bit limited on what we could get because it was really important to me that I was doing this moulded frame look. But being a Kz440, the backbone is really, really short. So I actually ended up fabricating this tank. This is just sheet metal that I folded on the fly press and TIG welded together. In a later episode, I am gonna have to finish off doing some work on that. Where this project has kind of been my back project, I've had other ones in front of it. There are lots of little bits that I need to finish, so at some point I'll take you in a little bit more depth through the tank. The fake oil tank, which is actually my electrics box, that's all been fabricated in the same way. That is again just sheet steel, and it mounts up under here, so it's quite an invisible looking mount. So moving on to the rear section, as I said, a lot of the frame on the original bike had rusted out, so I put in this hardtail myself and fabricated all that lot. I've also started moulding it, but you know, I probably should have waited to do that, but I just got a little bit impatient. And basically the way I'm doing that is I've built up a profile underneath it with some round bar, and that gives me something to mould against, something to get a nice profile from. So the seat actually came from beside a dustbin. I'm pretty sure the guy was throwing it out, but he said I could have it for a tenner, so I bought it for a tenner, and it's really nice. Yeah, it's probably an 80 seat, but it's pretty in keeping, and it looks really nice being flush moulded in around the frame. The mudguard is something I'd had for ages. I did actually buy it. It's quite expensive. I think it was about 100 quid. That's not really been modified. I've kind of cut it down, but that's about it. The back wheel is the stock back wheel. That's a little bit tatty. When I actually got it, all of the rear brake system was snapped and destroyed, so I got a new brake plate, and I'm going to have to fabricate a back brake at some point. I'm trying to polish up all the bits I can, so the motor has been polished, the intakes have been polished, brake plate has also been polished, so I'm kind of going for that really shiny look, but going to dye it back a little bit just so it looks a little bit older. Now, the sissy bar is all constructed out of stainless steel, and the reason I chose to do it out of stainless steel is it's a nice strong metal, but it's also quite easy to work with, and you can polish it up to a mirror finish. So eventually I will polish that up and get it looking pretty shiny, but for now it's looking pretty good. It's got the chrome twists that run up here and again up here, just to match sort of the foot pegs, forks and the handlebars. So as you can see, a huge amount of custom work has gone into this. In fact, I don't think there's anything that's been left untouched. But there's still a long road ahead of us. We've still got a lot more work to do. Now, as I said, I'd like to get it running and riding by summer. Hopefully that's a reality, because I've actually got 2 more projects in the loop. But before I can get around to doing those, I've got to get this one done. So hopefully you'll join me in my new build series and enjoy that. Hopefully next week I will be making a stainless steel brake pedal, and maybe even the fixings as well, so that we've got a functioning brake. But that's it for today's episode. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments, do you like choppers, or are you here just to watch stuff get made? Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.